as Victoria said, my name is Nicole Jane Ray Bills, and I will be doing our speaker series throughout the day today. So we have talks on the hour between 11 and 4 p.m. And we're starting off with Eunice Choi. So I am really excited to introduce Eunice to the group because her experience spans software engineering and also data science. She works at Booz Allen Hamilton, where she helps government clients tackle their toughest challenges by developing innovative apps that often include machine learning components. Eunice has served on elite hackathon teams, and she's also taught technology classes for a nonprofit for high schoolers. In her free time, she enjoys catching up with her two cats. And now I'm going to turn things over to Eunice so that we can get started with our questions. If you have questions for Eunice, there is a link that will be in the sidebar to an app called Slido, and we'll be using Slido to collect questions from the audience that we will then turn over to our speakers at the conclusion of the event. So I'm just going to make sure that we have that app linked up in our message here. Okay, great. So you guys should be able to access this portal, and yeah, there we go. All right, fabulous. Okay, so let's get started with questions for Eunice. So first off, can you describe the interaction between software engineering and data science in your work?
Yeah, so I'm in a team where we make software for Veterans Affairs at the moment. And then we have our app in particular works with patent applications for some of the research that VA does in conjunction with some of the university and researchers, hospitals, things like that. So in the very beginning of our process, we have this portion where we ingest disclosure forms from various universities and hospitals. And that portion is very important because the forms are all different. It's not one uniform kind of form because all the universities have different formats that they use. And so in the very beginning, when that form is being ingested into our software, we have this portion where we use machine learning to kind of parse all the different information that we need. So that's the first process that kicks off our determination process from that point on. So you can kind of imagine it as if you upload a resume on a website, for example, sometimes it parses out all the information for you and then autofills some of the required fields. It's kind of like that. So we will parse information for the different forms, and then we will fill out the required fields for the user, and then kind of kick off the process from there. So that's where our kind of machine learning data science component comes in.
Okay. Thank you so much for that example. I think that's really helpful because increasingly machine learning will be incorporated into software development. And I think that the distinction between these two fields will continue to break down over time. But for now, at least, practitioners such as yourself who have the capacity to really work across both spaces are very valuable and unique. So I think this is a really great capability that you bring to the table. And I'm so excited to share it with our community. So how would you explain data science to somebody who had never heard of it before?
That's a very good question because I think it's very broad in a sense, but because when I first joined Booz Allen right after college, I was hired as a data scientist, and I still didn't have a clear idea of what it was. But I think over time, I kind of just got to realize that it's just anything that you want to do with data, and data is, everywhere. It's not just pertain to, like databases and technology, but it's something that you can collect, you can do really anything with it. So I would say data science is just trying to make meaning out of the data that we're able to collect, and even data that we haven't collected and that we will collect. So it's the process of collecting data, making some meaning out of it, and just kind of going from there. Because I think oftentimes data science doesn't end in just analysis or results, but it continues to have impact afterwards. Like what are some of the things that we can do with these results? For example, if you have like I think during the pandemic, we have a lot of like data science analysis on like where this is going, what is the best medication, what's the best like vaccines for these types of things, and like in all those different research, data science is being used everywhere. And so from that point on, you can make kind of decisions based on that, like what is the best path forward. So I think that's continuation of that. Yeah, so that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point you bring up, because the pandemic did bring data to the fore. I think there's a lot of conversations right now happening around the virus and also around the upcoming election, around the impact of social media, where this expertise really like comes to play. And it's great to have good scientific communicators out there to talk about sort of what data science looks like on the day-to-day. So jumping into that, do you have advice for somebody in our Women of Code DC community who might be interested in entering tech, either through this data science route or through software engineering, specifically geared towards the kind of work that you do as a federal contractor at Booz Allen?
I think, first of all, having strong foundations, very important, like algorithms, all these theoretical things, doesn't seem very relevant, but I think the more I work, the more I realize that having the right foundation is actually really important, because you can build on top of it. And any kind of technical interview for data science roles or software engineering roles will require you to go through interviews where you will be asked to go through these different algorithms. So I think for me, that's the very first step. And then especially for data science roles, having a strong background in also statistics as well as algorithms really help. And then in terms of for federal contracting, I think just kind of having the right mindset and having the right network of people to really guide you through the process. Because I think the first step is usually the hardest, getting your foot in there and knowing the right people to talk to. So, I mean, being an event like this, I think is the first step in building that network. So, I think once you are able to submit your resume and talk to someone on the team, then I think from that point on, like the technical skills, personal skills really matter. But I think for government contracting in particular, one thing that I feel like is really needed is, this is like kind of a non-technical thing, but kind of having passion for like greater good. I think a lot of people in government contracting are here because they want to see real impacts that come from their work. And not saying corporate work doesn't have that, but I think government contracting in particular, you can see a lot of like results right away. Like for example, Veterans Affairs, all these fundings that we're able to save through this application, and then you. In return, you can use that kind of to fund more research for the veterans. So things like that, I think having the right passion and yeah, so I think that's very important for federal contracting. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that response. I think federal work is so mission driven, and getting to work with these agencies that are working with underserved or vulnerable populations, that's a really rewarding aspect of this job potentially. So as a federal contractor myself, that definitely resonates and is a huge motivator in terms of going to work every day and finding the passion, as you mentioned, to continue to learn, which is just so key in the tech space because we're always expected to learn and continue to grow in our skill sets. Awesome. So beyond the client work that you're engaged in, which thank you for telling us a bit about the clients that you work with and how those projects tend to go. Can you share a little bit about any internal initiatives that you're involved in at Booz Allen or anything else that you're doing outside of work?
Yeah, so internally, I was not so much these days, but I used to be more involved with women in data science. It's like an internal Booz Allen team that we have where the women of data science, we come together and share seminars. We have like learning sessions. We have principals, vice principals come and share their thoughts. And it's kind of really good. I think it's just so amazing because I think often women in tech, we feel like we're not like the majority. And I think it's been really great to have the support around you who like really believe in you, who are willing to really help you grow and teach you the right things and right steps, and having that close interactions with higher ups that you normally wouldn't have on your day-to-day job. That's been really amazing. I think because of the pandemic, I haven't been too active in it, but for outside of work, I'm also involved in a nonprofit for a scholarship foundation, actually. So review applications for students who need scholarship. And I think the pandemic has actually increased the need for some of those students. So that's been keeping me busy outside of work. Yeah, and then I am also in a master's program part-time at the same time. So it's been a lot of different things happening in my life, but I'm in this program particularly because I think tech is a very fast-growing sector of our industry, and it's really important I think having the right entry is important, but I think what's also more important is kind of catching up with it and being willing to constantly learn. So that's kind of what I've been striving for. So yeah, those are some of the things that I've been doing on and off work.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's it's really great to see your involvement across work and also these social impact initiatives. I just wanted to take a pause here if you're just joining us and reintroduce my conversation partner for the 11 to 11:30 interview time slot. So I'm speaking with Eunice Choi. She's a software engineer and a data scientist at Booz Allen Hamilton. So far we've talked about her experience, kind of what a sample project looks like, what she's currently working on, who she serves in her role, the importance of really sponsoring women as they enter into the tech space. And these interviews are put on by Women Who Code, which is an awesome organization that's seeking to help promote parity between the genders in the tech workforce. And if you have a question for Eunice, please do add that to the Slido page for this event, and we'll be checking that in about 10 minutes when we transition over to audience questions. All right. So what has been your proudest accomplishment to date in your work?
So the current project that I'm on, the beginning of the project was a prototype. So initially our contract wasn't to create, like a production website, but it was to create a prototype for them to look at and kind of test the waters, because they saw a greater need for these automatic systems and having the right database and having the right software for expediting the process. So we started out as a prototype for about a year. And then for me, I think the greatest pride that I felt since joining Booz Allen was when they liked it so much. We've been interacting with the clients with the software for about a year. We've been iterating, and at that point, we had a lot more features than we initially had sketched out. They were expecting so much more. We were producing so much more. And when the clients decided, okay, we want to go live, we want to turn this into a production version of the product. And then that just made me feel very proud and accomplished, because that means, the whole year of work that we've been doing, it's actually going out into the world to help the customers, and having a direct impact on these research for the veterans. So I think that's a moment where I really felt like I was making an impact at work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the go live is so exciting. So,
yeah.
Absolutely. All right. What predictions do you have for the next 3 to 5 years in technology?
So I think I keep talking about the pandemic, but I think that will be even more of a turning point for tech, in my opinion, just because, we need a lot of technical innovations right now due to the pandemic, for finding the right medications, right vaccines, but also because a lot of people are connecting through technology only at work, for, just social reasons. Everyone's, doing Zoom, doing YouTube. So I think that that technical connection has been even more vital than ever before. And, at this rate, we will probably be in quarantine for another maybe like a year or so, maybe less, maybe more. But I think during that time, there will just be so many innovations that we will need. So I think for the technical space, just so much more need for data scientists who are willing to do work around the pandemic itself, but other software engineers, other data scientists who will need to work on, like how to connect people better, and how to make this world connect better in a world where we can't really connect socially as well as we used to. So I think those technologies will be very important. So that's been kind of what I was thinking these days.
Yeah, I think you're right to focus on the impact of technology on these two very influential spaces, healthcare and connectivity. And also, I think that moving forward, observers will see that this pandemic really defined the turning point from the old 20th century ways of being and working into the 21st century. So we had a bit of a runway to get there, and then this pandemic has really accelerated some trends that were already existing, and in terms of shaping and changing the world. Okay, switching gears to a more fun question. What would you consider to be your superpower as a software engineer / data scientist?
Work related, or just for fun related?
So the premise of the question is sort of like, what thing are you really great at through work that really accelerates your ability in your day-to-day job? I'm also curious what your fun superpower selection would be.
So I think I can answer both. So I think work-wise, I strive to learn as much as I can. I like learning new technologies. I like learning new stacks because they keep getting updated. Like even if you learn something, a year ago, you'll have to relearn in order to know the latest thing. And I think that's very important when it comes to, software engineering, because you need the best technology, you need the best stack. So I think that's one thing that I'm good at, the willingness to learn and adapt quickly. So that's one of, I think, my greatest strengths. And then in terms of fun, I like to organize fun team activities. So I think that kind of helps reduce a little bit of stress within the work environment, even when, we're super stressed for deadlines and things like that. I think I'm pretty good at making everyone take a little breather. During the pandemic, I think when we can't go to, actual happy hours and things like that, I've still managed to put together some happy hour segments for our team. One of the things that I did was show and tell, adult show and tell. So since we are at home, everyone has something interesting that they can show to each other. So I think that's one thing that I do really well.
Yeah, I think so. I think that that's probably really, really appreciated at this time. And that's a great idea for our audience too, to bring to their workplaces, to put forward as they're going into interviews, to talk about the ways that they are looking to bring their authentic, fun selves into the workplace, right? Yeah, cool. Well, thank you. I'm so excited that you're able to do that. So we're going to turn in just a minute to audience questions. Before we jump into that, I'd like to talk for just a second about the Women Who Code organization. So with chapters in 70 plus cities around the world, Women Who Code is focused on empowering women in technology. The organization offers coding resources, leadership opportunities, a job board, and a global community for female learners. Women Who Code is also an anti-racist organization that recognizes the power of its platform as a force to affect social change. Okay, so with that information covered, and hopefully everyone watching this is encouraged to sign up through Women Who Code, get involved in the DC chapter or wherever their local chapter is. Let's turn now to questions from the audience for Eunice. So our first question that we have here, I'll start with the data science question, since you mentioned that this was where you started your career at Booz Allen. Do you have any specific resources that you found helpful when you started in data science? So for example, this question asker is looking for courses that you took or certifications that you attained, etc.
One of the resources that I used was Data Camp. I think that was really helpful because I was able to kind of code as I go. So I think they have specific sections where you can code on there instead of just listening to lectures. And then I think even for any kind of online lectures, even if it's not Data Camp, I think Udemy has some great ones. MIT has some great ones. But I think whatever it is, it's really important to code along, because I think when it comes to coding, it's really important to be able to do it yourself, because I think theory will only get you so far. Very important too, but I think it'll only get you so far when it comes to coding, because I think hands-on knowledge is also a very important part of data science or software engineering. So I would check out some courses in some of those platforms. Udemy, as I mentioned, Data Camp has very good introductory ones, as well as some of the more advanced ones. I found Google has some really good certificates for those. And then MIT has, I think, college level ones that you can just take online as well. So.
That's really awesome. Yeah, we're lucky right now that there's so much that's available that you can just pick up and start doing online and really get a leg up in this space. And yeah, and I just want to echo what you're saying, that coding is actually so important for data scientists. I've had some folks reach out to me saying that they're interested in going into the space, but they're like, I don't really care much for Python, and I'm like, it's about your mindset, and that's something that you may want to reconsider, because actually, it is really important to code along, as you're saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, just wanted to echo that point, and then just emphasize that there's so much out there to get you started. So the second question I want to ask is around the mindset of maybe somebody who's starting in software engineering, so they already have some background, maybe it's a language other than the ones that we typically think of when we think of data science, which tends to be Python and R.
Right.
But if somebody's already coming from a software engineering skill set, what advice would you give that person about transitioning into data science? Like, what should they be thinking about? How can they approach their job to gain the relevant expertise over time, and continue to grow more towards becoming a machine learning engineer?
I think there's actually a lot of overlap. So I think transitioning is very, I wouldn't say super easy, but I think it's relatively easy in that sense, where you already kind of have that skill set, and software engineering, you also work a lot with data. So I think in terms of handling data, should already be pretty equipped. But I think the difference is that data science has a lot of like statistical portions that you might not really encounter when you're doing software engineering things. So I would recommend definitely taking some introductory data science statistics courses, because that will be a strong foundation for data science. But the things that build around data science, actually, I always say for data scientists, having software engineering knowledge is also very important, because just getting the results out will never cut it. In the end, you have to build things around data science pipelines to be ingested somewhere, to be used somewhere, to be really useful after the fact. So having that knowledge to build, containerize your solution, for example, right? So I think in terms of that, you already have that. So just being able to kind of create that space of more theoretical, statistical, machine learning knowledge would be useful. And then I feel like for software engineers, they usually use a lot of JavaScript or Java, a lot of Python as well, usually. But I think depending on what team you go to for data science, it'll usually be Python or R. So getting a little more familiarity with the language itself, if you're not already, would be my suggestion.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you so much for that comprehensive description of how these two fields interplay. I just feel like we're so lucky to get to kick off this interview series by talking with you, Eunice, because as I mentioned at the outset, it's pretty rare to find somebody who's so well versed in the capabilities of both software engineering and deployment, but also the data science and statistics aspect. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for this conversation. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And we will be back live again at the top of the hour with a new speaker. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining the Women Who Code Career Services event. Thank you so much, Eunice, for joining us to tell us about your expertise. This has been really fun to learn from you. And I hope everybody continues to enjoy their day.
All right, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.